Hey guys, let's get more news from Steelers, but first don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your like. Tim Benz, if Kenny Pickett is being honest with us, I hope Steelers coaches weren't being honest with him. A dust-up has been swirling around the allegations that Kenny Pickett refused to be a backup quarterback Sunday for the Pittsburgh Steelers in Seattle. Pickett addressed that storyline Tuesday and denied it. Something else he said is the bigger story, though. There was no talk of me being a backup quarterback this week in terms of being a number 2, Pickett said. If I was healthy enough to play and trainers and coaches felt like I looked good enough to play, I was going to start and play. Let's stop right there. If Pickett was healthy enough, he was going to start? Really? After what Mason Rudolph had done against the Cincinnati Bengals the previous week. Rudolph put up 290 yards passing and led the Steelers to a 34-11 win, snapping a 3-game losing streak. It was the first time the offense cracked the 30-point barrier all season. It was the first time the franchise broke 30 points in a victory since November 15, 2020. After an 8-game slump with Pickett and Mitch Trubisky behind center, Rudolph got receiver George Pickens involved to the tune of 195 yards and 2 touchdowns. Then Rudolph went out and helped engineer a win with a 112 passer rating in Seattle, a place where the Steelers hadn't won since 1983, with the organization's playoff hopes hanging by a thread. Gee, I guess the Steelers coaching staff is lucky Pickett wasn't healthy enough to play, huh? Someone isn't being honest. It's either that or the Steelers coaching staff has lost its collective mind. One of 3 things is happening here. Pickett lied Tuesday about how things went down last week, and he was ticked off about the decision to start Rudolph. If that's the case, then there really is fire behind the smoke about the allegations that he pouted his way out of dressing in Seattle. Pickett was 100% truthful in his address to the media Tuesday, and the coaching staff was, somehow, genuinely ready to bench Rudolph for Pickett after that win over the Bengals. Mike Tomlin and the coaches weren't being honest with Pickett. They planned to start Rudolph all along last week, and they were just using his healing ankle and lack of practice reps as an excuse to avoid starting him. If you are a Steelers fan, you better hope it's that last thing. Otherwise, your alleged franchise quarterback is a big baby, or the coaching staff has even less of a clue about how to navigate the post-Ben Roethlisberger era at quarterback than we all thought. Luckily, I actually do think it is the last thing. My guess is Tomlin and the coaches told Pickett, and the public, that the decision about who was going to start Sunday in Seattle came down to Pickett's health and his practice reps during the week. One man's misfortune is another man's opportunity. Kenny Pickett knows the score watching Mason Rudolph succeed in his place. The Pittsburgh Steelers released their official depth chart for the season finale yesterday, and it told a big lie. It listed Kenny Pickett atop the latest depth chart at the quarterback position, even though for the first time in weeks we already know that is not the case. As a competitor, you want the ball. I want the ball in the most crucial situations of the game. I want the ball in the biggest games of the season, and this is what you work for. This is what you do, he said, via the team's website. But one man's misfortune is another man's opportunity. One man's misfortune is another man's opportunity. It's a phrase that he repeated earlier and represents how he feels his current circumstances, about which he's almost undoubtedly not wrong. While he was not playing great football, he likely would have continued to start all along had he not suffered an ankle injury. That injury keeping him sidelined resulted in the Steelers cycling through Mitch Trubisky for 2 games before turning to Rudolph, who indeed seized the opportunity Pickett's injury and Trubisky's struggles provided. Pittsburgh scored 34 points and he threw for 290 yards and 2 touchdowns in a crucial win over the Cincinnati Bengals. Then he led the offense to a 30-point affair in a win over the Seattle Seahawks on the road, the Steelers' first win in Seattle in 4 decades. Mason played well when he got in there. I have a ton of respect for Mason, everything he's done, and what our team has been doing, Pickett insisted. Now my job that I'm back healthy is to be the backup, and, if something happens, if he goes down, be ready to go and continue to support him the way I've been. Now one has to seriously consider whether he may ever be the starter for the Steelers again. It's unlikely, barring injury, that he plays another snap this season. And they may very well look to address the quarterback position in some significant way this offseason, including trying to re-sign Rudolph and potentially allowing him to compete outright for the starting job. Jets release Dalvin Cook ahead of season's final game. In a move that comes roughly 13 weeks too late, the Jets are parting ways with running back Dalvin Cook. Added as a free agent this preseason, Cook averaged just 3.2 yards per carry and didn't manage a single run of 15 yards or more. Added to be the backup to Breece Hall, Cook offered little to nothing out of the backfield this season and now hopes to land with a playoff contender. According to NFL Network's Tom Pelissero, the New York Jets and running back Dalvin Cook reached an agreement this Tuesday, 0-2. Both agreed with the athlete being released and leaving the team. Cook is now a free agent and could sign with a playoff-bound team. The information came from LAA Sports Entertainment, which manages the running back. Coming from the Minnesota Vikings this season, Cook wasn't used much in New York, and his production dropped drastically. In 15 games, the player had just 67 carries for 214 yards and no touchdowns. A very different situation from his last year in Minnesota with 264 carries for 1,173 yards and 8 touchdowns. When signing with the Jets for $8.6 million, it was expected that the number 33 would be a compliment to Breece Hall, who was returning from injury. However, the team utilized Hall much more frequently. Healthy throughout the year, the number 20 accumulated 816 yards on 186 carries and 4 touchdowns. It will be interesting to see which teams will be interested in the veteran RB. The Cleveland Browns suffered the loss of Nick Chubb, their leading running back. Many question whether Tony Pollard is enough for the Dallas Cowboys. Either way, Cook, at 28, should try to make the most of his final years in the NFL. And you fan, what do you think of the Dalvin Cook situation? Leave your opinion in the comments.